Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, here's your host, Aslan Hajavandi.
Good morning. Welcome into Wake Up War Chant, Wednesday edition of the program. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. I have fought tooth and nail for the title of Director of Digital Media. I have earned it. Gene gave up. But senior writer, that's earned.
Right.
Corey Clark also joining us today. Corey, how are you, man?
Good, man. And the senior writer is just because I'm old. I didn't really do much to earn it, other than I'm still in the business after 20 years. So that I guess that's where you get your seniority from.
Well, of all the writers at warchant.com, you're the most senior.
Well, actually, I'm the youngest out of all of them. But I had to have a cool sounding title, or there was no way I was coming over here.
Well,
so
Ira's not really the writer anymore. He's the managing editor. So.
Well, he still writes more than I do. I somehow worked that angle, so that's worked out well for me so far.
It was short-lived, your reign as the youngest person at War Chant. I saw the happiness, or I could feel it exude through the monitor after they did the introductory photo of you and put it on the website. You're like, hey, for the first time ever, I'm the youngest guy at a place of work. And
for like 6 weeks, yeah.
And I was just kind of cackling to myself. I'm like,
yeah. If I'd have known what was coming, right? A young guy. How old are you, by the way? Are we allowed to ask that of people anymore?
No, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you in your 20s?
No, you can ask me. I'm 34.
Oh, man, you look like you're 28.
Really? Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's the beard, too. If I shave this beard off with all the gray in it, man, I'd probably be able to, sneak into College Town and not be the creepy old guy that we talked about last night.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
You know, you talked about going to Midtown, and I need to develop a social life, and we'll develop a life here talking about Florida State shortly. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. But, this Midtown area, what is Midtown? The Midtown wasn't even around when I was a kid, when I was, going to school. I've driven through it, and I'm like, that was it? There's no hub. Is there a hub? Where's everything going on?
I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not the best at these things. I'd say there's 6 or 8 spots that you could go to, and I don't know that they don't sponsor with this, so I'm not going to name them.
All right, don't.
But there's
that,
an Irish place
that
you could maybe say is the hub, and that's next to another place that has live music occasionally.
Yeah.
And so there's hubs, and it's just a little more. Well, it'll be a little more your age.
Okay.
Sometimes I still feel even too old for that scene, but at 34 and looking 28. I mean, you can roll in there, man. You can go to Bulls. You'd be fine at Bullwinkle.
Yes! I should go to Bullwinkle's on Friday. Anyhow, the people who do sponsor us, we can talk about them, all day long. For the Table, 3 great locations in College Town, Madison Social, Township, and Central. I have not been to Township nor Central. I've heard Township's really good. A guy used to work with Noah Mindell over in Alabama, who used to actually intern for Jeff Cameron, who you can hear 3 to 6 o'clock right here on ESPN 97.9. Was like, dude, he's like, when I come to town, we'll go to Township. You'll love it. So I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. There's a lot of places you need to check out.
I do, man. It's good times. And then one of these days, we'll have to make a bet where, if we win or I win on a bet, you're going to have to take me to Athens, show me around Athens.
Right. Okay,
bring Ira, too. I got to go to Athens, man. I just feel like I got to go to Athens.
Yeah, man. Sure. As long as you'll drive, I'll pay for the gas.
I thought you were Mr. Driver.
Oh, well, yeah. You can hop in the car with me, buddy.
All right. Fair enough. All right, man. So today, we'll look back on yesterday, which was a pretty cool day for Florida State. They had FSU Day over at the state capitol. And somehow, between having to try to lure, that's a bad word choice, but somehow in terms of having to close out this recruiting class, Willie Taggart found some time to come out and kind of interface with fans for the first time. I think it was the first time really since he was introduced, which was 2 months and a day to that date yesterday, that he was actually able to kind of shake some hands and meet some folks. And listen, I'm not anti-Willie by any means. I liked Jimbo, and I know that makes a lot of you at home angry. I'm not going to apologize for it, but you'll still have to agree to disagree on that. But I wasn't around last year to witness the toxicity and just the overall glum that kind of hung over this program. But yesterday, I don't know if it was the great weather, but it felt really, really cool. It felt very energetic. It felt like you had a head football coach who was excited to be where he was.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that, as we all know, is just the new bloom on the rose, man. It's something new. The people in College Station,
good folksy saying. I like that.
Yeah, I was doing that for you in Montana and Alabama and all the places you've been.
I appreciate that.
The people in College Station are really excited about their new coach. That's just how it works, and what he's done in his past, and how he's going to change the program. So yeah, I was wondering about the FSU day. Do they do Florida days at the Capitol and Miami days and Central Florida days?
I was thinking about that too. That'd be really awkward.
They might. We would have never covered it because why would we care? But also, how many are Florida fans just going to show up at the state capitol on a random
It might be
Tuesday in March or April?
Maybe they do something in the cafeteria. Probably not the production level that they had.
Probably not. Yeah,
on Tuesday. In
probably
terms
send
of,
out a mailer or something, or a mass email saying, "Hey, everybody, it's Florida Day."
Yeah.
But I think that's the first time that Taggart's been around fans, really, unless people were standing in front of the Moore Center when he pulled up on the day he had his press conference, the introductory press conference. He hasn't really interacted with any fans at all because he's been busy recruiting. Tuesday was a nice thing, and then obviously today he'll really be able to interact with people at the car museum for the recruiting party, which will be the first. That's his first real booster event where he'll get to speak, and it's not just to the people in the room; it's the people Florida State fans watching really all over the country.
Worldwide,
yeah, all over the world, all over the globe. Kyrie Irving, all over the globe, so it'll be his first time to really speak directly to them and not just to the media.
And you won't be there.
No, I won't be.
Not going to be there
watching the meaningless basketball game at the Civic Center.
Cool. Yeah, listen, Willie's like me. I think I only have a finite amount of time I can smile before it starts hurting. Mm-hmm. And he just kept trying to have this painful smile. He's like, all right, let's just let me get up there and talk already. But I mean, he was taking photograph after photograph. I mean, young, old guys, gals, white, black. It was everybody was super excited to see him out there. And I asked John Thrasher alongside Ira Schafel, aforementioned managing editor of WarChant.com. Ira got some stuff from him I think the story's probably already up right now on WarChant, if not later today. But I just kind of asked him, listen, how comforting was it just to kind of hear a coach at your university be excited to be your head football coach? Because Willie, he was on the podium. We didn't really get to grab him because he had to get shuffled off and close the deal out for signing day and all that kind of stuff. But he got up there, and one of the things he mentioned was, it's really started slowly hitting him now that he is the head football coach at Florida State. And, life, his job is a little bit easier now because when you walk into a high school, campus in the state of Florida and you got that Seminole head, the new Seminole head, not the old Seminole head that
right.
I like a lot.
Let's talk about that next segment.
It just makes everything easier. You get instant respect. So to hear him say something like that, then ask John Thrasher, how comforting is it for you to know that your head football coach seems to be kind of happy where he is? And he just had a grin. He's like a mule eating briars, just from ear to ear. Just he's like, man, it is really comforting. He's like, it is really comforting. You have no idea. I mean, kind of hinting at, the stress that everybody else felt between, October to December when the whole Jimbo thing was in limbo. Right. That he wasn't impervious to that either. So I think everyone's excited, man, and I'm excited too. It just, sometimes I look back on the past too much and I shouldn't, but I think it's cool, right? I mean, it's cool. People want to hear me say we when I'm talking about Florida State, although I feel I shouldn't, but to see a coach who wants to be there, who's embracing, not saying they, is a really cool thing for the fans right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also human nature when you again, we've talked about this, but when you don't feel appreciated, like maybe the fan base didn't feel appreciated by the previous guy, especially at the end, to have some, and so you've already gone through a really bad, maybe the worst season at least in 40 years. And then on top of that, you feel less than, like I talked about yesterday. And then you have somebody come in and then remind you, oh, yeah, this is a great place to coach. This is a really fun place to coach. And look, again, I'll couch it a million times. Jimbo was great here, did some great things here. He put together maybe the best college football team I've ever seen.
I think the best.
It's incredible what he did. And it wasn't just a quarterback. All those dudes are playing in the league. That was just a great football team. So he did some amazing things here. But again, at that, it just seemed like you got a guy here that really seems to appreciate what he has, the opportunity he has. And it's almost like he feels beholden to Florida State fans to live up to their expectations and to live up to what's come before him. And it's just not so much what he doesn't have. Now, that will come, I'm sure. Maybe it's already, I can't imagine it's already happening behind the scenes, but maybe so. Yeah. Maybe he really wants a football-only facility. He just doesn't talk about it publicly like Jimbo did. But I just think it's a really, it's just so different for Florida. And you can imagine if you're dating someone and they don't really seem to like you, the next person comes in and is over the top appreciative and really seems to like you, laughs at your jokes, doesn't roll their eyes. You feel good about yourself. And I think Florida State fans are going through that process right now, where they feel good about how their head coach feels about them.
See, the thing I have to reconcile, and I remember you mentioning on Seminole Headlines, which will be on Thursday this week?
Thursday this week, yeah.
All right. Fear not, everybody. It'll be here. It's not going anywhere. Everyone's like, all right, that's all I wanted to know, going on with their day now. The things I have to reconcile, and like I said, you mentioned this many times on Seminole Headlines, is the fact that, like, listen, Jimbo did not make Florida State. Florida State was a brand created by Bobby Bowden, 30 some odd years ago. I have to reconcile the fact that that is true, but the fatalist in me who legitimately thought at certain points in, the lost decade that Jeff coined, that it just never was going to happen again. Just felt like whatever Florida State had was like what Alabama had back during Bears time, and just never going to get back there. And for Florida State to get back to that peak, and then obviously, like we just mentioned, maybe have the best football team ever, I just felt like, man, I don't want to let this go. Like, this is the guy that we're going to have to be able to do it with, and it's all or nothing with him. But I just have to be able to kind of reconcile the fact that, like you said, listen, Florida State was, Jimbo Fisher did not make Florida State. Florida State can thrive without him. So that's the thing that I'm just slowly trying to,
Well, I don't think you're alone there.
Around.
I mean, again, there's a lot of people that are mad at him, but I think there's a lot of people also in the back of their minds are like, okay, how's this going to work? There's the fear of the unknown. Like, Willie Taggart's going to bring in some great players. We know that today, but also in coming years, he's going to bring in great players. Is that going to translate to playoff appearances? We don't know. There's the fear of the unknown there. When Jimbo was a known commodity, he could put together a team, a roster that could challenge for championships. Now, again, it had dipped, and it's hard to bounce back after a dip. And it had been 3 losses, could have been 5 or 6. 3 losses in 2016, could have been 5 or 6. Yep. Then 6 losses again this year. So you're talking about, again, 12 losses. I think he was 17-12 in his last 29 games against Division I foes. It wasn't like he's leaving after a 29-game winning streak. So there was also the fear for Florida State fans that it's never going to get back with Jimbo here. Yeah. So Texas A&M came and kind of, took that problem away, and the $40 million he was going to be owed if he'd have been fired.
This is what I was hoping was going to happen next year. There was a scenario in my mind that I kind of had play in my mind, and I do think that ultimately this probably will be for the best for Florida State, at least financially.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
That salary off there, because even if he stayed and failed, then they'd been on the hook for it. So we'll talk a little bit about that in terms of what I kind of wanted to happen and how silly it is. And I'm sure Corey's going to laugh at me, and you guys can laugh at me too at home. We'll talk about that more and plenty more right after this. It's Wake Up War Chant here on ESPN 97.9 in Tallahassee. Keep it right here. Coming right back.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back to it. Wednesday edition of Wake Up War Chant. National Signing Day is today. We'll have Michael Langston joining us later in the program, giving you the lowdown on the recruiting scoop. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, Director of Digital Media for WarChant.com, Senior Writer from WarChant.com. Corey Clark also joining us here today. Always. So, like, this is what it's going to be like, everybody. Corey and I are going to do this show, man.
Just making magic every morning. What's the thing we're supposed to laugh at?
Well, actually, first off, what we don't laugh at, what we enjoy plenty is For the Table. They're our sponsor. Again, 3 great locations in College Town, Madison Social, Township, as well as Central. And don't forget, folks, there's free parking in the parking garage Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you want to go grab lunch, it's a piece of cake. Just go ahead and park in there. It's free. This is the silly sort of thing. My brother and I and another friend have like a group text message, and we always talk about sports and stuff. So ideally, this is what I wanted to have happen. I wanted Jimbo to come back for 2018. Right. One more year, right? Like one more year. Either, we'll see what, either it's not an aberration that he's on a dip, or, the proof will be in the pudding in 2018. This also would have given Florida State one more year to evaluate a guy who I think is going to end up being another really good coach, and that's Lane Kiffin. So I think that.
Ooh, boy. Okay.
Yeah. And Willie would still be there. I think Willie Taggart is still there for you in December 2018 if Jimbo flames out, if Jimbo ends up, wrecking this thing into the side of an iceberg or whatever. But I really think Lane Kiffin is like in the second act of his career, or maybe the third act of his career. I guess the first act could have been when he was at USC as a coordinator. The second act of his career was him just being this brash jerk with the Raiders and then with Tennessee. And then my thing is like when he left Tennessee to go to Southern Cal, That was a good move. At that time, Southern Cal still had a lot of cachet. Southern Cal was still, even though things were starting to kind of get a little bit sideways with Pete Carroll leaving, that was still one of the top 5 programs in the entire nation. That was when the SEC started to really, start thumping its chest, and you had a really tough path to make it to a national title game. So I just thought if Jimbo came back for one more year, you lost your quarterback and all that sort of stuff happened. Just would have been nice to see him for one more year, kind of try to figure it out. And if he doesn't, then you kind of see if Lane Kiffin, could put together another 10-win, 11-win season, win a conference title, keep his nose clean, not be an idiot, and then be like, well, shoot, this guy might actually be all right. And if you don't like him, then you could still probably pluck Willie Taggart out of Oregon.
So in your theory, you would fire Jimbo Fisher and hire Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, I guess that's when you put it like that, yeah.
All right, well, I get what Kiffin – is he at FIU or FAU?
FAU. The FAU.
The FAU. I mean, he had a nice year there. And maybe he can –
really nice year, man.
But he had a shot at a big blue blood program, one of the biggest ones, and right. he flew that into the side of a mountain, and that wasn't that long ago. And then just his interactions, the way he acts on – just the way he is in life – people want to say that he's learned his lessons and he's a different coach now and he'll do better the second time around. I don't get that vibe from him. I think he's a good coach, but
still arrogant,
very arrogant, and there's a lot to deal with at a Florida State that there isn't at an FAU. There's just a lot of challenges. There's a lot of people you need to be nice to. Right. There's a lot of you're recruiting against different caliber of schools. Like the kids that he's recruiting at FAU, who else are they being recruited by? So Lane Kiffin is the most intriguing and appealing probably of all those schools that are in on that particular kid. It's Lane Kiffin, it's FAU. They run a fun offense. They know his name.
Tone.
All that. But if you're at Florida State and recruiting against Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and Florida, man, you just – I don't know. He hasn't proven that he can do that. I guess you could say Taggart hasn't either. I just think Taggart, weirdly, has a better track record because he had winning seasons at 3 different schools, yep. Including 2. He took Western Kentucky to their first bowl ever, and they were on like a 25-game losing streak when he took over that program, and then 2 years later they're at a bowl. Yep. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And then South Florida, he had 2 terrible years, and then his 4th year they went 10-2. The next year they went with his players. Charlie Strong won 10 games, so he's shown he can do it and sustain it at a program. I don't know that Lane has, but thankfully we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about that, the dream scenario.
That was a very delicate, diplomatic way of telling me I'm stupid. I appreciate that, Corey.
I mean, I don't think it was that delicate. I think I did it.
It was diplomatic.
It was diplomatic for sure, yeah. Right. But no, I mean, I think Lane Kiffin has a chance. Somewhere he's going to get a job at a Power 5 school at some point. Yeah. We'll see where it is. It won't be at USC and it won't be at Tennessee.
A funny side story related to what you just mentioned there about, Willie kind of bouncing back at USF. It was the summer of 2015. I was in Jackson, Mississippi, and I was getting ready to kind of, get out of Jackson. I was going to move back home to Tampa, regardless if I could find a job or not. And I had a really good relationship with a high school coach in Mississippi. His son actually was last year was a offensive coordinator for a group of 5 school or whatever. So I actually saw posted on the internet that USF needed not a grad assistant, but they needed like a student, not a student assistant. I can't figure out the right word, but they needed some sort of like support position for their football program.
Like an analyst.
Yeah. And I'm like, listen, I really do love football and appreciate the nuances and the intricacies of everything. And I remember asking him, I'm like, do you know anybody at USF that could put a good word in for me? And maybe, because I'm like, they're not just going to take any Joe Blow. Everything's total fraternity, total network. It's all about who you know when it comes to getting a job like that. And the head coach was just like, listen, man. He's like, you don't want to go there. He's like, that guy's going to get fired after this season, man. He's like, you're going to be looking for another job. And I'm like, all right, well, I mean, still though, I don't care. I kind of want it, but that was sort of the prevailing wisdom. The thought was that Willie Taggart was like on the hot seat going into 2016. Well,
because they were terrible his first 2 years. The first year you get an excuse. The second year they were almost even worse, I think.
Yeah. Oh, this was before the 2015 season.
Yeah.
This was the summer before 2015. Yeah. So yeah, then he rattled off 2 really good seasons.
Yeah,
really good seasons.
And then his players that he recruited this year went 10-1 or whatever they were, 10-2 this year under Charlie Strong. So. He's shown he can put together a class, and again, there's reasons I think to be really optimistic. Maybe we're pie in the sky, we're biased just because he's not Jimbo Fisher. He's somebody different. He's a breath of fresh air. But I just think it's a really good fit. Now this could be a freezing cold take in 4 years when he's fired, but I think he's a really good fit for Florida State. His personality, his genuine affection for this and affinity for this program. That comes through because he knew Peter Warwick. He played against Peter Warwick. He was a Florida State fan. It wasn't good enough to be recruited by Florida State, even though he wanted to be. And now he's the head coach 25 years later. That's just a cool story.
Yeah. I mean, he was from Palmetto, down there in Manatee area, Bradenton, all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah. And again, we talked about it in the first segment. And I like him, man. I really do. I have nothing against Willie Taggart. I just have the fear of the unknown sort of a thing. But to see him kind of just go around and embrace everybody. And like you saw Jimbo. Like Jimbo right now in College Station having to do – like, is he giving people the thumbs up as just like a general sign of like, hey, we're doing well? Or is that a Texas A&M thing? Like, he puts his thumb up.
Does he do a thumb up a lot? Like a Bill Clinton?
Yes. It's a very weird thumbs up. It's not like a Siskel and Ebert thumbs up. It's like
a
pinch.
Like he's almost holding a pin in his hand, something, and just kind of like Bill Clinton.
Gig him or something.
Now listen to me. I'm not going to tell you again.
Yeah.
So that was my Bill Clinton impression, everybody.
Solid.
If you heard it. Solid.
Right,
I got
a second right behind your Liam Neeson impression.
Yeah, I think Liam's a little better. I didn't even go for the Bill Clinton impression because I was scared how bad it would sound, but then it just sounded like a Corey Clark impression where he's whispering. But yeah, no, that I'm really interested in that fit out there. And Lord knows Florida State fans are going to be watching that very closely over the next few years out in College Station to see how he fits in there. Because that seems like it might be work out perfectly. That seems like a really bizarre fit of a man and a culture and how he's going to fit, with cowboy boots and cowboy hats and people wanting to slap his back and give him advice because they give $1 billion to the university and how he's going to handle that.
Like, is Jimbo Gene Chizik?
No.
It's so hard for me to think that Jimbo.
No.
And part of me, I don't think Jimbo's going to do well at Texas A&M. I really don't. And then other than sitting on a stack of $75 million, like, where is he going to be in 3 years? Like, how is he going to be talked about?
Yeah, no, I mean, it'll be fascinating to see. He's not Gene Chizik. He's not Urban Meyer either. Right. And I know people don't like him around here, but Urban Meyer is a great college football coach. And what's interesting is if you ask yourself, is Jimbo Fisher closer to Gene Chizik or Nick Saban?
Oh, jeez. Chizik?
Yeah, probably.
Way closer
to
Chizik.
Now, Chizik won a championship because he had an all-time great quarterback. Jimbo Fisher won a championship with an all-time great quarterback, but he showed he could win. He won 12 games the year before.
Right.
And he won, 10 games in 15 and 10 games in 16. So he wasn't just a Jameis Winston wonder. But again, it was just such a struggle the last 3 years without Jameis. It was a struggle Jameis's last year, to be honest with you. There were 4 or 5 games they could have lost that year. So I think when people look at Jimbo's tenure here and you'd say they overachieved or reached their potential, you might only say that about one team out of 8. And that was obviously the best team of all time. So, I mean, that's a good one to say it about. But you can't really say 2014 always played up to its potential. They were down in every single game they played with 20 NFL dudes on it. And then obviously 15 and 16 didn't really play up to their potential either. 2012 lost that crazy game at NC State. So, I think Jimbo Fisher maybe I think it was a mistake to give him that kind of money. But I also understand why A&M's doing it. They think this is their guy. We'll see. We're dubious of it. I think you're dubious of it.
I am.
As much as we respect him and what he did here, it's hard.
You don't have to say we. Don't put yourself in this bad boat.
I do, and I do. And I just think that it's so
People
much harder
like you,
to win.
Corey, don't do this.
Yeah.
They like you, Corey. Don't do this.
It's so much harder to win at College Station than Tallahassee, man. It is hard to win there.
It is.
I mean, nobody does.
It's bizarre. We'll have to figure it out here as the months come down. And one thing I want to think about and talk about when we come back, we'll talk to Michael Langston after this. I think we'll bring in Michael. But what's spring football going to look like around here? Something that perhaps pondered. But also, let's talk about this basketball game, too. You're going to be there. It's important. If you're there.
It's a really big one. If I'm there, it's big. Yeah, for
huge.
Sure.
Keep it right here, folks. It's Wake Up War Chant on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. We're coming right back after this.
WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source, knows now is a time of true excitement for Nole fans everywhere. That's why WarChant.com is especially proud to announce its newest team member, senior writer Corey Clark. Combine Corey's expertise with owner Gene Williams and managing editor Ira Schafel, and WarChant.com boasts nearly 50 years of experience covering the team you love. It's Taggart time in Tallahassee, and that means now is the perfect time to sign up for your free 30-day trial. From National Signing Day to March Madness, WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
National Signing Day is here. Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant. Man, there's so much to know about recruiting, and there's only one person that can give it to you the way you need to know, and that's Michael Langston from WarChant.com, joining us right now here on Wake Up WarChant on ESPN 97.9 here in Tallahassee. Michael, how are you, man?
I'm pretty good, man.
All right, so here we are, man. All these months, years now, because you're talking about the class of 2018, 2-3 years ago. It's all kind of coming here to fruition. What is just the general feeling that you have? And I know we've been asking you this every single day, and things are pretty steady, I imagine. But just what's the general overall feeling for Florida State as they're going to be walking to the office this morning and seeing what's spitting out of those fax machines?
I think there's a lot of excitement and heavy expectations that they're going to kind of finish how we've been talking about with several guys. And I don't think there's really I haven't heard of any surprises or anything like that. So I think they're going to get the guys that they expect, and I think it's going to be a pretty good day for them.
Can you peel the curtain behind it all for us and give us a peek at things, Michael? When can coaches continue? When's the cutoff for contacting recruits? Are they able to call them on Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon?
I think there's a dead period, and there's kind of different ways of that. The kid could contact them, consistently. Even during the dead period, the kid could contact them. So, there's ways, there's kind of different ways to get a kid on the phone, so they can do it until they sign a letter of intent, and they're working the phones, and then you work the phones until the fax is in, and so I think all these coaches are still talking to all these kids and making sure everything's perfect and making sure there's no surprises. And so I don't think the calls really change anything, no matter if we're getting to sign day or not. I think it's going to be pretty steady, and just to make sure everything's straight and narrow. But the conversation's nonstop, or they don't stop until I think every letter of intent's in.
Wake Up WarChant brought to you by For the Table, our presenting sponsor. 3 locations in College Town, Madison Social Township, as well as Central. Michael Langston from WarChant.com joining us here on the program. Michael, this is the second signing day of the year, or at least this period, I guess you could say, because back in December there was that early period. There's, I guess, maybe not as much drama or suspense going into today. In terms of the families you've spoken to, the recruits, your contacts, coaches, what's sort of been the feeling with this dual sort of window of kids signings? Is this something you think that coaches and families have been fans of, or is it just some sort of wrinkle that doesn't really seem to bother anybody?
I don't think it really. I think it speeds up a little bit what you have to do. So in that part, it's good for some and it's not good for some. It just depends on what your situation is and where you're kind of at in your recruitment. If you have a pretty good idea where you're going and you kind of plan together, I don't think it matters to some recruits. But I think for the coaches, obviously most of them are probably not a fan of it, because you have to speed up your evaluations. Certainly with Willie Taggart, they were put in a very extremely difficult situation to, it came in basically with a week and a half to get kids on board for the early signing period. So that was extremely difficult. But I think it's more of a problem for the college coaches than it is, I think, recruits in general. I think recruits in general kind of like it, because the earlier the better for them. The earlier they can shut down stuff, and they don't have to have people like me calling them, and
right.
Finding out what's going on. But I think for the most part, it's mainly just the coaches that's the problem with.
Do people, and this I'm probably included in this, do people really appreciate what Willie Taggart's been able to do in such a short amount of time, Michael?
Well, just being on the boards, I think most people do. I think they really appreciate, the job he's done, regardless if you don't hit on every single guy that we think are going to be in the class. I think they understand, the positions they were put in, and also they understand the needs that FSU is addressing and how they've done an incredible job. We've talked about their rankings countlessly, but just the way they've addressed the needs with solid prospects and likely to address their need, on National Signing Day. So I think just about everybody. I haven't seen anything negative. I think fans truly understand, the work and what they put into this class, and I think it also gets everyone excited for 2019 because the people understand, like, hey, man, they only had basically a month and a half, and look at all these guys they're pulling in that are top players, and imagine what they're going to do with a full year. And I think there's a lot of excitement, but also expectations of top 5 classes in the future because of what they've done in this last month and a half.
This is so crazy. I mean, like you mentioned, the amount of time that Willie's had to put this sort of class together and the caliber of kids that he's bringing in is just amazing. And I don't know so much. I think Florida State fans should really feel. I think for so long, Florida State fans have this sort of inferiority complex where we might not have enough money as this program or been around as long as this other program, but what's been accomplished in the last 40 years is just so impressive that these kids continue to want to come here to Florida State. I know there's so many different moving parts behind all this, Michael, but in your estimation, I know you made your final predictions on warchant.com. If you hit all yours correctly, where will this class, you think, ultimately kind of fall? Is top 10 possible, like number 10, or is that 10 to 15 slot probably where they're going to end up?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think it could be between 9 and 12, even between 9 to 15. I mean, I think 9 and 12. I think if they hit on all those guys, I mean, you're talking about if nobody else got a commitment right now, I think you could see them moving all the way up to like 6, 7, but then they're going to get pushed back because other teams are going to get commitments. So I think between 9 and 12 is a realistic spot. Obviously, it could trickle down a little bit lower than that, but I think if they get most of the guys they're supposed to get, I mean, certainly I think it's going to be top 15, and that alone is not something I thought I would be able to say on on signing day.
All right, man. What kind of donuts do you want? I'm going to probably grab a whole bunch of donuts on the way to Gene's house later today so we can get everything going. Just you Krispy Kreme guy. Actually, I can't say any brand names, but you're just like a glazed donut guy. What do you want? Some with sprinkles, man. You've been working hard.
Man, I'm a simple dude, man. I mean, I'm easy. Just give me the regular stuff. Give me glazed. I like glazed donuts. I don't need all that stuff in the middle or stuff on the side. It's like I'm simple. Just give me glaze. I mean, the only thing I'm going to tell Gene is make sure he has plenty of Mountain Dew because he knows how much I love Mountain Dew. So that's the only thing I want to make sure because if he doesn't, I might have to beat him up. But hopefully he'll have plenty of Mountain Dew on
Michael's all jacked up on Mountain Dew, man. Awesome, man. All right, man. I'll see you in a little bit over at Gene's, man. Your coverage has been awesome, as always, this year. We'll hopefully hear from you tomorrow as well. We can get a wrap on what you thought the class looked like when we rendezvous tomorrow. I'll see you in a little bit, but thanks for your time as always, Michael. Take care, bud.
You got it. Take care.
That's Michael Langston, recruiting analyst for Rivals.com and obviously recruiting insider for WarChant.com. When we come back, Corey Clark back on the mic with me as well. We'll talk about this basketball game that's looming, a huge one for Florida State, their chances, what they need to do to win, as well as maybe a peek ahead to the spring football season. I know that's so far for some folks, but it feels like it's tomorrow for me. It's Wake Up War Chant. It's ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Coming right back after this.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Welcome on back to Wake Up War Chant here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Final segment of the day. I'm Aslan Hajavandi alongside Corey Clark joining us here in studio. This is good. I like when you're here, man. Eye contact.
Yeah, it's better, right?
It's pretty sweet.
You know when I'm talking. I know when you're talking, so I don't talk over you. That's always nice.
So, yeah, if everyone's like, wow, the show's really good. It's like, because, yeah, this is what happens when you're together in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Rosillo. Like, I'm so sad that there's no longer the Rosillo show, but when they would go on the road, you could tell, like, even those Friday shows before a big Saturday football game were like, a little bit down because he had his guys back in Bristol and he was kind of there by himself. So, one of those crazy things. All right, let's talk about basketball, because if we don't talk about basketball now, then it's going to get lost in the shuffle. So, huge game. I mean, legitimately, and I'm not pandering. This is a really big game, obviously, for Florida State. Virginia, are they still number 2 right now?
Number 2, yeah, 22-1, and undefeated in the league.
Not bad.
Yeah, no, they're good, man.
Yeah, Louisville lost to Syracuse the other day, right?
Yeah.
All right, so maybe that kind of like, all right, Florida State, kind of turned the corner here on things, and then you saw Louisville lose to Syracuse.
But,
hey, man,
but Florida State beat Syracuse,
that's
so
true.
that helped that helps out win.
Touche.
Better.
What are you expecting, I guess, out of the game tonight?
Low scoring. Yeah, man, I'm really interested in this one. I guess I'm interested in all of them, but Virginia is so good defensively. But this is the best this might be the best offensive team Florida State's ever had. I mean, they just. Yeah, I mean, I think not
under
ever
Leonard
had
Hamilton.
under Leonard Hamilton. Yeah, they had those teams in the 70s that would score 110 points. But under Leonard Hamilton, this is the best offensive team they've had. There's a lot of guys that can score, and you're going to need it. That Louisville game, I think they had 5 guys in double figures and another guy with 8 or 9. I mean, it's got to be spread out. There's no way a guy like there's no way a Terrence Mann could score 28 against Virginia. They take your number one options away. That's what makes them great. They take almost every option away, really. Yeah. You got to knock down jump shots, and you got to get out and run if you can. They're really good about getting back. They milk the shot clock. They're just a really hard team to prepare for and a hard team to play. But the good news is they don't score a ton. So unless you're just terrible defensively, you should be in the game with 10 minutes left. And then if you're in the game with 10 minutes left and somebody gets hot, you got a chance. But if they win this game, this will easily be the biggest win of the year. It would almost cinch up a spot in the tournament. They'd still have to take care of business against like Boston College and Pitt. But if they can win this game, then they're almost assuredly in, barring a collapse.
See, I thought Tony Bennett had like not an epiphany, but like a sobering loss from last year's tournament that maybe they were going to not ditch the pack line, but maybe play a little bit more loose. But this is quintessential Virginia still.
Oh yeah,
pack
no, they lost to Florida. I mean, they had I think they scored 30-something points in that game. It was embarrassing. That game happened literally 30 minutes after Florida State got ripped by Xavier. Yeah. They were the same building, but yeah, I just think it's the same defense. They're a little better offensively, weirdly, because they lost 2 really good players off that team, but they've somehow found scoring. They're tough. They're tough to guard, and they're always hard to score on. It's just, I don't know. Leonard said earlier this week that he feels like they could play defense if the lights were out. Like they just know where everybody is. Yeah. Even if the lights were out, they'd guard their men because they just work so well together. So it's a tough deal to go up against. And don't be surprised if Florida State has 40 points with 8 minutes to go in the game. I mean they'd still be in the game.
Right.
That's just how these games are played, unlike the other games that have been played in the Civic Center this year.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So like a race to 60, like 65?
I think a race would be to 55.
Really?
Honestly, I mean Virginia just does that to you. And I think what they if they get up by 8 or 10 points, then you really start pressing because your opportunities to score a lot. And so they held Clemson to 38. Clemson's a good team, and Clemson scored 38 points. They held Duke to like 60. They just suffocate teams, and they don't give up offensive rebounds. And Florida State's a very good offensive rebounding team this year, a very good rebounding team in general. So that'll be a good test for them too, is how they do on the boards. But Florida State's got to play defense. They got to match that defense somehow, and then you got to hope that a Walker or an Angola or a C.J. Walker, M.J. Walker, one of those guys is knocking down threes. Get you 4 or 5 threes from someone. And then you got a fighting chance. You're not going to have Bacon what he did last year against Virginia. He won the game by himself. You don't have that this year.
We saw some really good mettle out of the Florida State team in that double overtime win against Syracuse. Also, the win I think against Louisville showed some really good mettle.
Yeah,
bouncing
and
back
the Miami
from
win in overtime.
So I mean, I feel like this will really put them to the test in terms of them playing. I know this is no longer defensive-minded team. Obviously, we talk about them running and scoring so much, but so much of the importance, and I've heard Ira mention it, of the offense getting going is getting stops because they don't want to play in the half court. They want to run. So you figure this is going to be the best sort of display or litmus test for Florida State right now, right? Because not only are they going to have to score, but they're going to have to get stops to be able to score. So we'll just see how committed they are to defense finally.
For sure, yeah. And because if Virginia, again, I know they don't put up a ton of points, but they're pretty efficient offensively, really efficient actually. And they'll make you work on defense so they can get backdoor layups, they can get open threes, and Lord knows this team gives up plenty of open threes as it is. So they can kind of expose you if you're not good defensively. But Florida State just has to match it. You got to hope the crowd can stay in it, even if it's a quote unquote boring game because it's a slow pace game. If the crowd can stay in it and you're close in the final 5 or 6 minutes, you put some pressure on them and you can sneak out a W. But Florida State's an underdog in their building for, I don't know, the first time in 2 years, 3 years. I mean,
really?
Yeah. I mean, they weren't an underdog any last year. They were rolling folks.
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, Florida State's an underdog at home, and it would be an upset. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think Florida State can beat. I mean, it's a 3-point spread. Florida State can beat this team. But, I know it's a dumb thing to say. They have to play well. Virginia doesn't give you games. You have to go take them from Virginia. I guess that's the point.
Yeah, you're going to have to win it. Virginia's not going to lose it.
They're not going to just kick the ball into the stands and shoot 2 for 20. You have to go take a win from them.
All right, moving along now. 6:30 tip-off, 7 o'clock tip-off?
7 o'clock tip-off.
7 o'clock
yeah.
tip-off, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Watch it, folks. I don't know if is it on Bounce. I don't even know. I saw your tweet though. That was pretty solid.
It's not on Bounce. I think it's on the Fox Sports Florida station. Well, I don't know where people are listening to this. The people in Tallahassee, I think it's on the Fox Sports Florida station.
All right, very well. Good
not
stuff.
Bounce. Thank heavens.
Yeah, but the quality of the spring football game might not be all that well either because it'll probably
that's not going to be on Bounce, is it?
No, maybe they'll actually do it on ESPNU or something because it is Willie Taggart. It'll be Willie Taggart's first year, so hopefully that'll be kind of cool. Now, want to kind of maybe look a little bit ahead to, I know spring is far away and we got to get through signing day first. Obviously, National Signing Day is today. You heard Michael Langston earlier in the program. Good times. We'll get a full wrap from him tomorrow in terms of where Florida State ends up sitting. But one of the weird things to me was when Willie Taggart was getting this staff of his sort of lined up and hired, for some reason, as it slowly happened, I felt very underwhelmed by the hires. I remember I saw some names. I remember when I saw the Jim Leonard name, my heart fluttered. I'm like, wow, Jim Leonard, that sounds really cool if we got Jim Leonard to be the defensive coordinator.
Right.
And then as soon as you'd hear some names, you heard Ron Dugans and Ron Dugans doesn't get the job and you're kind of bummed. In the moment, it was like, dang, man, this is not going to be the best staff. But for some reason now, as I've been able to kind of just sit back and look at the big picture, I really, really, really like the staff top to bottom. I really like the Walt Bell hire. Yeah. I like the addition of, the two guys on defense, Snyder from Michigan State and Harlan.
Barnett.
Yeah. I like the additions of those guys. And I don't know what we're going to see from them in the spring, but I just feel like you'll be able to get a better gauge of things. But it's going to have to be just so much more fiery, at least. I mean, to choose maybe the easiest, lamest generic term, but just there's going to have to be more fire out there. I feel like these guys – I don't know so much the youth, but just these new voices and these guys have the great pedigree from the programs they're coming from.
Well, and I think, going into any coaching search and then you find your coach. Number one, the biggest coach they had to get was the head coach, and they got him immediately. That was the number one priority. They got their first choice. I'm not sure where these other coaches lined up on Taggart's wish list. I don't think all of them were his number one choices, but you got a really respected offensive line coach, and you got a really respected defensive coordinator. To me, those are by far the two biggest positions on a staff to fill. They're pretty. Greg Fry obviously has ties here.
Is it Fry? Somebody asked me to figure that out.
Oh, I don't know. I assume it's Fry. I don't think it'd be Frey, like the band. No, I think it's Fry. So he's got ties here. He went to school here.
Right.
And then Harlan Barnett, man. I mean, when you're thinking about teams that play great defense in this country, you got to go handpick their defensive coordinator. Michigan State, the last 3 years, has been as good a program. I mean, they had that bad year in 2016, but they were in the playoff 2 years ago. And you just went and said, all right, we want your defensive coordinator, and you got him. And so, the spring game will be really interesting. We'll obviously talk about that more as it approaches. But I think he did a really good job. I wasn't blown away by maybe the defensive backs coach, and maybe that's because as a Florida State fan growing up, I really wanted it to be Buckley.
Yeah,
I thought T-Buck would have been awesome.
That was another name.
Dugans, maybe not some. I didn't really care that much about the receivers coach. I just really wanted T-Buck.
I'm with you. I agree. More Buckley than Dugans.
Because I think you could have gotten him, and I think he did. He wasn't on his list for. And Buckley's also the reason I like Buckley is because he paid his dues, man.
Yeah.
He's a GA here. He went to Louisville. He's at Mississippi State. He's a multimillionaire that played forever in the NFL. He doesn't need the money. He wants to be a coach, and he's worked his way up the ladder. And I thought maybe he was deserving of a look at Florida State. But, Willie Taggart saw differently. That's fine. It's the DB's coach. It's not the most important hire on a staff. I just thought it would have been neat to have him. But otherwise, man, I think Walt Bell's a really interesting hire who did some really good things at a young age. At his previous, I think it was Arkansas State.
It was.
Didn't do well in Maryland, but was really behind an 8 ball with all their injuries up there. So
the story you did about Walt Bell and the quotes you got from Blake Anderson, that was awesome. That was really well done and made me pumped up to get the hire.
And I thought that was what people needed because you do look at Maryland's numbers and you're like, oh, man, what is this? Yeah. What do we need this guy for? But when you look in his background and how much that guy really liked and respected him and what their offenses have done, you see, okay, man, maybe, and Blake Anderson said that, he really respected Willie Taggart for having the forethought to make that hire and not just look at numbers, but to actually think to break it down and say that's the kind of mind I want. Even though they only averaged 360 yards a game, that's the guy I want, quote unquote, coordinating my offense. We'll see how much, and that's something I would like to ask Willie later today when we talk to him. If we get to talk about things other than recruiting, is what is that relationship going to be like? How much is it going to be Walt Bell? How much is it going to be Willie Taggart? And I think that's something we'll also see in the spring game, too.
So many questions to get to. We should do another hour of the show.
No, that's okay.
We will do another hour, but we'll do it tomorrow, though.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah,
we'll
do it on Thursday. We'll get to talk about National Signing Day, baby.
Woo!
The faxes are going to be rolling in any minute now. Literally any minute now. They're going to be coming in.
Those fax machines, man, put them to good work. Thanks again to our friends at For the Table sponsoring the program. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up War Chant. Don't forget the Jeff Cameron Show coming up at 3:00 in the afternoon. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great one, folks.
Darn pop-ups and video ads.
Are you wasting your time again on clickbait FSU updates that are bloated down with ads?
Yeah. And after crashing my computer, the information isn't even up to date. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with the Seminoles?
For the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer right now.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
Use the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Nobody has more accurate and timely information on the Noles than warchant.com.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.